Any other public comments? All right, we're going to move on to the consent agenda, which contains minutes from our regular meeting and our work session, and correspondence, including just mentioned articles and committee reports, board reports. Our assessor is here tonight, Catherine Skull, and so I might pull her report just so she can make a couple comments on that. So, can I come forward? Sure, absolutely. Yeah, you can use my microphone if you want. Yeah.
So for the people here that may not have, I may not have spoke with yet, I'm the city assessor, and you got mails from me recently. Our assessment notices had gone out to mailer back in February. This is the time period where we're a little bit more front and center in everyone's view. The Board of Review hearings are actually to be held next week, next Monday and Wednesday. And that is on your notice. The notices look a little different this year. Hopefully they're a little bit more easy to read, a little bit more explanation. The packet that I had given the board just shows our starting values as of the time that I had printed this. We were still collecting some personal property. So the pre-Board of Review totals are a little bit different than what I presented in your packets. But what that actually indicates, there's two different reports there. One is showing as of the Board of Review last year, the close of March Board of Review in 2022. All of the changes that have been made by property class and what the tentative total values are by property class, both for the assessed values and then the taxable. Kind of a look between where things were last year, kind of the sum total of the work that we've done over the year and where it is going into the Board of Review next week. After the Board of Review is completed, we will rerun these reports. That's what goes to the county and to the state, ultimately becomes, part of what the tax roll then is working off of. And you'll all get copies of those final numbers at that time. That'll probably be coming to you. I'm gonna either April or May. And then lastly, the last page that I have there is just what the tentative assessed and taxable values are for 2023. This is put out there by the assessor, and then the Board of Review will come and sign this as their certification of what those totals are after any changes have been made next week. Lastly, I'd like to draw everybody's attention if they are interested at all. We've been working very, very hard. We had Legacy out a few years ago, and we've been pulling all of it together. We have been updating our website. And so anyone that may be familiar with the way our office looked about 4 years ago with boxes and files, it's now running smoothly. We have a website that's working and that you can actually, there's a property tax estimator on the assessor page. So if you go out to the main page for the township website under departments, assessor would be the first department. You would be able to pull up property assessment and tax information, be able to pull up the property tax estimator, where you would be able to put in a taxable value and it would give you an estimate of taxes, amongst other things, all sorts of different forms. But that has been a hard fought, hard worked at project, and we're kind of saying, here you go, we're pretty much done. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to address the board and any people here today.
Absolutely. Thank you for all your hard work. You and Susan are doing an outstanding job, and we have a really solid foundation now in the township for the future in the assessing office. So thank you.
So one question, oh, 4037 said board spoke to approve that.
Not necessarily, so I'm supposed to statutorily, we are required to turn over the assessment role to the board of review, which we did this morning. And then also to the township board at the first meeting in March. So these are just really, I didn't bring the role in, I can bring the role in and show it to you, but it's a bunch of small writing, wouldn't mean a lot. These reports reference what the totals are by top of it.
You're thinking of the L 4029, which is what goes to the county, which has what our millage rates are gonna be. Right. And some of the forms out there.
I provide that information to know that the clerk and then in the summer.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Okay, thank you, Catherine. So other than that, is there anything, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So
Thank you, Rob. Motion by Ross.
Kurt, second.
Thank you, Kurt. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Thank you. Motion carries. All right, now we're to the approval of the agenda. I have one item I would like to add, which is consideration of, wait, how do I title this? Our attorney's response to consumers' condemnation actions. There's a property in the township that consumers must have put their pipeline through, and they have not worked out a settlement with the landowner. We are not the landowners, but we are listed as defendants because they have to list everyone who might have any interest in the property, and then they remove us one by one. So I have an email here. We'll get to that when we get to that, but I want to add that to tonight's agenda. So let me get a little history. When I figure we were. Sure, consideration of attorney response to Lago and Daniels condemnation complaints. Thank you. And then the other thing I would like to do with the agenda, other than adding it, is move the letter of intent conversation first under new business. And city manager Roy Atkinson is here tonight, so he's welcome to stay after that, but if we move it up, maybe he can get on with his evening a little bit sooner, so.
I like to also put the thing in that I sent out earlier that didn't get added in, just about adding Lake Trust as a financial institution.
Yeah, Lake Trust. Institution. On our finance, on the investment policy.
Yes.
All right. Yep. Okay, I will make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Thank you, Rhett. So motion to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Thank you. Okay, first unfinished business. I'm not using my microphone. Is minutes transcribing for board trustee and planning commission. This part in the chair. Sandy, do you have any new information on this? I know you reached out to the IT people and
I did, and I sent them an email on Sunday asking if they can do whatever it is that has to be done to connect the township taping of, board meetings to put on YouTube, and I haven't heard back yet.
Hmm. Alright. Well, do we want to table this discussion for another month?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay. So Sandy, is that your motion to table for one?
I move that we table this, minute transcribing as recommended by the Michigan Township Association. To table it till our next meeting.
All right, so motion by Sandy and supported by Rod, is that correct? Okay. Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye, opposed say nay. Thank you. Next, consideration of adding IT staff member. I think this in the next item. Okay,
I think that IT staff. Yeah, IT staff we're gonna cover. Oh. IT staff we have covered, it's on.
Okay.
so that's resolved then. We're not gonna be adding an IT staff member, and we're satisfied right now between IT Right and STG, who is our website company, and then Rod here to be a local. Thank you, interim. That. Okay, then, what do you do when issues been resolved?
Let's see, make a motion to remove it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, let's do that. I would have to Robert's rules to see what to do, but. I'll make a motion to remove the item from the agenda. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Thank you. Consideration of adding an office manager. This is another item that we discussed at our budget meeting.
Yes, we did.
And I don't think that we're ready right now to do that, you know, a job description ready or anything like that. Well, what do we like to?
I would like to table this until our next meeting.
Right.
Kurt, second.
Motion by Sandy, thank you, Kurt, second by Kurt. To table until the next meeting, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay, thank you. Lastly, under unfinished business is consideration of alternate consultant for master plan review.
At last month's board meeting, it was mentioned that Carlisle Wortman was unable to provide the services to the planning commission to conduct the master plan 5-year review. 2 local planning firms were contacted and 1 responded. The firm of Beckett and Rader has agreed to meet with the planning commission to hear from them what concerns they have and what they would like to have addressed in the 5-year review. After they meet with the planning commission, then Beckett and Rader will provide the township with a cost quote to do the review work.
Good. And Beckett, yes, I was just gonna say they're in Ann Arbor. I know they're a big firm. When you mentioned planning firms, people know Beckett and Rader. And there was another one that I can't read, but they didn't respond. So yeah, we had a good conversation. I was on a phone call with them, and she's engaged and willing to come in and have and understands, you know, the long process. And lots of public input. So yeah, so she's ready to do that. And meet with the planning commission and then provide the township with a cost.
Right.
Okay. Okay. So this item is kind of resolved also, just motion to remove this item.
Yes, it's. I know that we removed this item. I
Second.
All right, thank you. Motion by Sandy, supported by Rod. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed say nay. Thank you. All right, new business. So now we have moved the letter of intent from the city of Chelsea up to the front. So, this is very exciting. This is something that has been, a long time coming, like someone mentioned in our public comment. And Chelsea City Manager Roy Atkinson is here tonight also. And we have been having some really great regional discussions, talking about regional approaches, how we can work together, for mutually beneficial solutions to problems. So it's been great. One of the things that we've been talking about is this idea of interconnecting our water systems. So, so we have a map here. But, oh, thank you. I meant to find our stand that we have. But the letter of intent is really, it's just, I believe the city passed the version last night.
Yep.
Same version you have here, it has a sunset clause in 6 months. To explore the idea. So this is not committing us to any monies right now. This is just, it's like the precursor to the precursor. So we're coming together, we're saying, yes, we both have a mutual interest in connecting our water systems. Bob Skull, our DPW administrator, is here today too. So, you know, if you wanted to come up or see anything, or Roy, if you had things to talk about, I'll hold the map or find the stands.
Yes, the city and the township had some discussions on the possibility of forming an interconnection between the two water systems. One would be down here by the Coliseum, and the northern one would be on Kavanaugh Lake Road, and possibly a third one later when Westchester's built out. And there's advantages for both communities, and the letter of intent is simply the first step. We all agree that we should look for this, that we, worth exploring. It may not go anywhere, but it hopefully it will. What the interconnection will do for the township is it will provide a certain amount of redundancy to the water system. Currently, the way the system's laid out, if there was a main break anywhere along the line, half the community would have no water. It's because it's not looped back on itself. Normally, a water system is looped back, the mains are looped back in case there's a break, you can bypass the problem. We can't do that as it is. So the interconnection would provide us redundancy in case there was a main break. And also, I believe Chelsea's interested in perhaps buying some water in the future. So it would provide income for the water plant to make it hopefully a little bit more viable financially.
It's fine.
Supervisor Kennedy,
Yes.
members of the board and staff, residents, thanks a lot for having us here, having me here today, on behalf of the city of Chelsea City Council and our government. We're very excited to be able to consider this. I think that I've been saying for months, in order to get ahead in government in 2023, governments have to come together and find solutions like this. It doesn't really matter if it's water to recreational systems, all the way through any governmental service can be on the table. It's really it's been really nice to get to the table with the staff. Our team has been working closely with the Sylvan team. It's exciting. It's good governance in practice, and it's something we want to echo with our other regional partners as well. So this has a great impact for our region. I think we both have mutual needs. Again, the letter of intent is a first step in exploring that, and I think it's a great step going in the right direction for potential future partnerships. It did come in front of our city council last night. It was passed unanimously to move ahead. And so it's here tonight for consideration, but I'm also joined right now by with our Utility Director Ray Schmidt and our Community Development Director Adriana Jordan. So our team is on the call tonight. And I know we're just excited to get started. It's been great. Potentially get started. It's been great just to get to the table. And I think that's good. And again, regionalism. It's how we get ahead. So
Wonderful.
I'll beat the drum on that.
Thank you. I think that's exciting. We talked about water, we talked about a lot of other possible things about, traffic or sewer issues. But I feel like the more that we can work together and build good faith, it's gonna be good governance, as you say. So also immediately when we received this, I sent it to our attorney and he looked at it and said it was fine. And I spoke to him this evening and said, oh, they put in a sunset clause. He said that we put it in for September. He said, that's perfect. So I will make a motion that the board direct the supervisor and the clerk to sign the letter of intent of interconnection with the city of Chelsea. Okay. Motion by Jackie, supported by Rod. Is there discussion?
Yes. Go ahead. See.
So when I first came on council, I'm looking online and just trying to figure out where the money comes from for townships. And I did see something about the state maybe increasing money to communities who work together for mutual benefits. So might this be a project that might be eligible for that?
I think so. I think there are a lot of opportunities in the state through Eagle. They look very positively on multi-jurisdictional projects like this. I think there are a lot of opportunities that will come with this grants and additional state. I guess that's just hip check. I really think that is possible.
Awesome. I was disappointed after I was reading about this because currently we don't cooperate with anybody. So there's no opportunity to bring additional revenue to the community through the state. So yay. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, sorry, I'm not, thrilled about this. And basically because I have not been involved with this at all. I got this packet 3 days ago. And it says, hey, look, we're looking at doing this. I don't know why we're doing it. I heard main break, I heard possible water sales. I don't know. Has anybody done a simple payback analysis on this? Has anybody put together a budget number for what the cross connections might cost? I see 1, 2, 3 things that say future, but it sounds like you're talking about 2 connections, Kavanaugh Lake Road. And so I don't know what the scope of work is. Will this involve net metering? I see, this is why we should have a work session on these kind of things first. Before you put it in front of me and ask me to vote on it. I mean, it seems pretty harmless. Like Rob Fall has looked at this and I've read it and there's all kinds of ways to get out of it. But really, we should have talked about this as a board before it comes up here for presentation. I didn't know that we're even looking into this. It looks to me like we've already contracted with IMEG to do work on this. The city is. I mean, somebody's paying for this, right? The city of Chelsea is. So have we? This, what we're proposing to do here is going to cost money to do this. You're talking about hiring engineering firms. You've already had Rob Fall look at this, so there'll be legal fees. We just had our budget meeting last night. I don't think we talked about budgeting specifically for this project.
I don't think we normally budget specific legal fees anyway. We budget for legal fees. It probably took them 10 minutes to look at this. And I believe this letter of intent is going to answer those questions. We don't know what it's going to cost. If we do a letter of intent and we engage someone and it turns out it's a bad bill to a silver, we're not going to do it. And so, you know, there's a lot of things, and you've been around here a long time like I have. This has been brought up, every year. Every year we have a study, there's from the water system, they're saying to Sylvan, you should hook up with the city. They're saying to the city, it would be beneficial to hook up with Sylvan. Now, that's just what I've heard through the years from Mike Rosick, from, you know, Water and Sewer Authority. So it's not a new idea. It's been around for a long time. We're just coming to the point where we're saying, hey, we might think this is interesting. Let's explore it. We're gonna come forward with numbers. If those numbers aren't acceptable to us at the board, then we'll say, no, thank you, we don't want to pursue this.
And vice versa with my board. So,
Right, right. So this is just an exploratory thing. This is a really, we've had maybe a couple meetings on this. So it's not like we've been meeting all sorts of times. Amanda came with me once.
I haven't been invited to a single meeting.
Well, but I wasn't invited to a single meeting with your supervisor either. I think, you know, supervisors were doing things, we're bringing things always to the board. I was clerk for 8 years and I feel like I'm being held to a different standard as a supervisor than others
So
were
let's
because
stick with
these are
this.
people were, well, hold on a
Luckily,
minute.
I still have
because-
before, I wasn't done. Robert's Rule of Order
Sure.
says that I get to say my discussion first, and then you're welcome to do your part. And I'm not
I
finished.
didn't know it said you could interrupt. Go ahead.
So I'd rather see the board have a work session on this and I say that I see this as being relatively harmless. I don't think you can get the township into too much financial trouble. But moving forward, I'd like to know what is the mechanism? Are we gonna have work sessions on this, or do we have a group of people we've identified that are gonna go do all these things that it's saying it's gonna be done in here? Have we, you know, who's doing all in the next step? Who's doing everything?
So that's. Are you finished?
Okay,
Okay. I mean, that's all laid down here. And as far as this lovely map that, you know, Ted Erickson did, the city paid for that. So there's been, you know, Bob Skull's been involved, Amanda was at, one of the meetings. Bob Skull came to both meetings, and I believe Carol, thank you, came to a separate meeting. They had Adriana there, and so I felt like having her contemporary there was good as well. So these are just discussions that we have. I hear you and I understand your concerns, and we can always have work sessions. So,
But I do think it would be good to let the board know, because the only reason that I attended the meeting that you had here was because I asked them what was going on in the boardroom. I think you did something beforehand that the city had been invited. So, I mean, I am agreeing with that point. But Craig's asking them just to let us know, and then, you know, just inviting the board. I know we have to be careful with the quorum, but
well,
allowing
and that's true.
a board member to.
And again, I feel like, you know, that's not something that other supervisors have been asked to do. So I don't know why I'm different. But I will always, you know, I have invited people to other meetings. We have to be careful when there's a quorum there. But also I'm to now schedule myself and anything's around multiple people, which is really hamstringing me in terms of what I can do. So I'm not doing anything in the dark of night. I'm not agreeing to anything without anybody, and I bring everything in front of the board. So this is simply, you have it in front of you. It's just a discussion to see if this is something that we might want to do. It would be beneficial to the township and to the city. Is there any other discussion? Any further discussion? All right, we have a motion and a support, motion by me, supported by Rod, to direct the supervisor and the clerk to sign the letter of intent on interconnection. Do we need a roll call? So it's not a resolution. We'll say all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Thank you. Motion carries. All right, the next item under new business is special election. We're going to move move the Board of Trustee May date. Thank you, Roy, for being here.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks,
Thanks to you.
Good one, everyone. Thank you.
Because there's now an election in May, so that falls on our board meeting date. So we need to move the board meeting date in May to the 9th. So I'll make a motion, we move the township board meeting in May to May 9th.
I will second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those say nay. Thank you. Update policy admin 190 to address a new form for tap fees. We have new developments coming in, so we have tap fees that are going to be coming in and we wanted to be prepared. We had an old tap fee that Bob Skull looked over, made some changes to. We have the old form and the new form here. And then attached to it is our policy. That we might want to look at, but the form, we would like to get approval of the new form to use that instead of the old one. There's not a lot of changes. I think Bob went through and just removed some people's signature, added signatures of other people that were pertinent, made sure it had the parcel number and our old form written, so that's helpful.
I'll make a motion to accept the new form.
Support.
Thank you. Motion by Rod, supported by Cindy to accept the new water and tap fee form. Any discussion?
Yes, I do. So one of the problems we've identified is that developers are getting water meters and installing them, and they've never paid the tap fee for the water meter. And so then we go back and we try to get money from the developer. So, you know, if we don't give them the meter unless they hand us the check, that's a lot easier way than trying to go get the money afterwards. Does this form help stop that situation? I mean, I don't see anything in here that says the meters have to be, paid for or in full before meter is going to be issued.
Well, and I think, so this form, if I remember correctly, came from a form that was used for the meters. So there is a separate form that is used when someone comes in and gets a meter. Is that right, Bob?
So the developer's not going to get a meter anymore unless he's paid for it.
No, the only developer that can install their own meters would be the manufacturer part. Other than that, our Hollowell will install the meter.
Right, but he's doing it. He doesn't know whether or not they paid the tap fee.
Well, it's not the form whether or not the tap fees are paid by the developer, the connection fees can be paid by the homeowner. And that's the fee for installing the meter.
So this is talking just I'm even more confused now. All we have is a tap fee. We don't have there are probably charges to connect it, but what we have is a tap fee.
We have a tap fee and a connection fee.
Yeah, they pay for the water meter. I mean, the connection, the tap fee is basically you're paying into the system you're buying into. You're paying for your portion of the water mains, the expenses.
Okay, so
Initially, that's.
So this says prior to issuance of tap fees, all engineering fees are to be paid about. Is that the trusted agency account that we're talking about? So again, we have a developer, Westchester Farms, and they owe us 30,000 in trusted agency. They're negative. But yet we're gonna go ahead and give them issuing taps.
Well, I think that tap fees are separate from trusted agency fees.
Right.
And so people, when they're ready to move forward, they come in and they pay their tap fees, that's at 5,000. And then there's a connection fee, that's the water meter fee
Yeah.
that people pay. for the water meter.
The tap fees are usually paid by the developer. I
Right,
think Westchester, a lot of these were already paid for through the consent order.
Prepaid taps paid a long time ago, a lot of them were, but some of them weren't. And so, you know, we're getting ready to have tap fees come in. So we wanted to make sure we had a form that made sense.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the policy on tap fees, the last page of this.
Yeah,
And it's Rev 3723, which is today, and I assume that that's connected to this form that was supposed to be approved. So it says prior to issuance of all tap fees and all engineering fees are to be paid with no outstanding, but I don't understand that. What's that saying?
my understanding was just today was we were gonna be doing the tap fees. I didn't know we made any changes to the policy, but
You know, prior to issuance of tap fees, what, you mean collection of tap fees?
yeah,
Then all engineering fees are, what are the
I think
engineering
the
fees?
policy needs some looking at.
The trust and
Policy
agency.
doesn't make. a
So
lot of
that's
sense.
why I'm confused.
Right, right. And again, my understanding was we were just gonna be addressing the form tonight. Did you,
Review the policy, I
Yeah.
didn't look at that.
Susan put it in here because it references it, I'll bet. But I didn't know that there's no, but I know what you're saying, Kurt, in this policy, like all of our policies, but this one in particular needs some clarification.
Okay, so on number 2, the Sylvan Township Water and Sewer tap fee form. I mean, if this is, if we're naming it the Sylvan Township Water and Sewer tap fees, then that should all be capitalized, you know, give the
Right.
form a name.
Well, and
And
I think the policy, right,
number 3 says the completed tap fee form, so we've changed names again. We should be consistent there, that the form is always referred to with the same name.
sure.
So other than that, this, what's this form doing for us?
Well, we have to have something when people come in, so this was, you know, we now, Leone has agreed to allow the flow for the manufactured homes and for Chelsea Springs. So these people are gonna be bringing in tap fees for us, and it's $5,000 for water and $5,000 for sewer. So you can imagine there's 143 new homes going in at Sylvan Crossing, that's a lot of money. So we wanted to make sure, none of us, I don't think, were really here when these old, you know, when tap fees were prepaid and stuff, so we looked at the form and said, hey, is this form gonna make sense for us?
Well, and a lot of times, we do need to look at the actual policy.
Yes. And
Well,
so-
in Sylvan Township, almost all of the tap fees have been prepaid through these judgments. So actually collecting them is a really rare occurrence. I
Right.
can't think of one.
That's why we wanted to
Well,
make sure that the
so-
form was.
Crossing
Well, yeah, that-
just did,
yeah.
Right,
Sylvan,
but
I mean,
before
like, where you use a form, like an individual puts a house up, that's when you use this form. You know, that
Okay.
they're gonna be tapping on the water system.
so then they come in, they fill out this form, date their phone number, water meter size, there is no sewer, toss it, the total cost, it's 5,000 per check number, everything looks good. Now, how do they get the meter?
They will, I'll get the form and I'll give Bob a call, he'll go out.
And say,
So
you
need to
collect
fill out the meter form, bring that back, so we have both on file.
So then you say, hey, Bob, they paid the $5,000 for the water tap fee, go ahead, install them a water meter.
Well, again, this is a handicap. Again, everything here is basically consent judgments. So these are gonna be kind of rusty, these policies need to be worked at and worked on because.
But my understanding is the tap fee doesn't give you the meter, does it?
Correct.
You pay $5,000, that doesn't mean you get a meter.
Tap fee is just, you're buying in the system. There's a meter
Okay.
charge, and Bob will charge and install the meter, and I don't know what that is.
Okay, so that's a separate charge.
Right. And it has another form also that goes with it, that looks a lot like this.
And in that one, we're collecting the money on those and
Yes.
people are paying those.
Yeah.
Okay,
Just meter fee and installation. Meter fee.
yeah, the charge for actually
Meter fee
connecting,
and charge for install.
and that could vary from house to house or business, it's a different size meter.
Yeah,
it's a
different size meters, yes, and that's in the rate setting, we have different prices for different meters. 99.9% of new ones meters are residential meters.
Okay, so the connection fee is to connect the meters.
Right.
What's the tap fee?
The tap fee is, again, you're buying into the system.
Oh.
So you're paying what everybody else is already paying, you're just paying your portion of the system cost.
Right, thank you.
Keep it going, yeah. Perfect. So absolutely, I agree this policy, and I did not know that she was gonna include this in there, and Bob apparently didn't either, and he's the one that submitted this, so this is a little bit of a surprise. The policy needs attention.
Yeah.
If we want to vote on the form tonight, we can. If we'd rather wait and do the form in conjunction with the policy, I think that's something we could do also for,
Motion's been made and seconded. So,
okay. All right, so the motion was made by Brad and supported by Sandy to accept the new form. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Thank you. All right, then the next one is to address cash receiving, another policy change.
We don't use receipt books anymore, it's all done through cash receipt to BSNA. So this just updates that, state that. Updates our policy to state that. Because all the receipts are currently kept electronically in the BSNA system.
So there's no paper ones around, and there's, oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. I guess I'm old school, that makes me a little nervous, but I suppose that. Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the updated financial policy FIN 50 to reflect the more current way cash receipts are kept in the BSA program.
Support.
Motion by Rod, supported by Sandy. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Thank you. Excuse me. Next up is just a change to our attorney communication policy. There's been a lot of communication on the Michigan Townships Association, about different things that townships run into, and one of the things was their attorney policies, and people said, here's our attorney policy. And we knew we needed to make some changes to ours, so I adopted some of theirs. This is up to, the board, of course, but I felt appropriate that board members, the chairperson, the zoning board of appeals, and the administrator would be able to contact the law firm. One of the other things, policies suggested that the supervisor should be copied or on emails just to be informed of what's being asked sometimes, to, reduce duplicative questions, some things we've asked before. But of course, we would leave a release valve in there if somebody needed to talk to the attorney about the supervisor is not sharing information or, performance or something, we would be able to contact the attorney for that without having to include the supervisor in that communication. Then the final thing is that I kind of forget about sometimes is through our Michigan Townships Association dues, which are costly. Included our membership is an answer center on the Michigan Townships Association. And they can answer real simple general questions. And sometimes someone will say, hey, can you ask our attorney this? Maybe I only talk to the attorney every other week. And then I forgot. And this came up with Sandy, she wanted me to ask, and I said, oh, go through the answer center. And I think she had an answer within 24 hours. So I just wanted to put that in there just as a reminder to people that before we incur attorney fees, if you have a question, it's real simple and general, something they could answer, that's a good place to look. And then there's some things in bold here that were on that other, on the other form, on the other sample policy, just noting there that anyone without authority who contacts the law firm would be responsible for, paying the law firm. at its current rate. Because we, you know, our lawyer, our attorney is a matter of public record, and people can and have in the past contacted him, and, you know, he knows when to respond and when not to, but I thought maybe, well, I'll leave it up to the board, if that's heavy-handed, we want to put that in there.
I think one little word change that I'd like to see happen in number 3 is instead of the supervisor should, I'd rather see shall,
Okay,
just my 2 cents money.
Where was that, Rod?
And number 3, when contacting the township attorney, the supervisor shall be copied on the email rather than should.
Well, I had a question on number 2. Meeting with the township attorney will not include 3 or more board members. Well, what if we need to have a meeting with the township attorney? You need to have, you know, what this should say is if you're gonna have 3 or more board members, then it'd be.
or Open Meetings Act,
Yeah, it'll
Right.
comply with.
right. Right, I like that, and that's actually the only line that's in our current policy, you look behind it, the attorney will not include it, and I think that's walking language, I agree. So we could say,
When 3 or more board members are meeting with the attorney, then it shall follow the Open Meetings Act.
mhm. All right. All right, well, I will make a motion that we approve the new form, with Mr. Kosik's suggested change to number 2, reading when 3 or more board members are present, then, Open Meetings Act shall be followed. Okay,
Where's that?
oh, and the change with Rod, I'm sorry, the change from should to shall. Thank you. All right, so motion by Kathy, supported by Amanda. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Thank you. Next is a Freedom of Information Act policy. I was gonna say, I don't.
We'll move that to this week.
We'll move it to the next meeting since there's no
Yes.
documents. Okay,
I sent it to everybody, just didn't make it back, so
okay,
just change it.
okay, so motion by Rod, I'll support that to table to the next meeting. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. 1, 2, 3, and then we moved the letter of intent up. So then we move to the additional items we added on. One is the consideration of the condemnation properties. So Sylvan Township and the Sewer Authority received this in October. I sent these documents to our attorney. There's 2 properties. One is owned by Larry Gotcher, one is owned by, I think the Daniels family. It's a very small parcel. And they have not been successful, or whatever has happened. They're moving forward with condemnation on those properties. So when I originally received this, I sent it immediately to the attorney, and I think I CC'd Amanda and Bob Skull and other people. I thought I should have sent it to the entire board at that time. I know Rod saw it because he's the chair of the Water and Sewer Authority. But I just want to say out front, that I sent it to him, and I probably should have just let everybody know earlier. So, and I know how I felt when I very first saw this. It looks scary. It's like a lawsuit thing. But, the attorney for consumers said that, due to a Schenkel court decision, in order to initiate the condemnation lawsuit, we are required to name every party with an interest or potential interest on the property as a defendant in the lawsuit, or the case could be dismissed at the request of one of the other parties. Unfortunately, this means parties we do not expect to have actual conflict with end up being named in the lawsuit as defendants. Road commissions, drain commissions, utility companies, etc. We then work with those parties to dismiss them from the lawsuit once their concerns are addressed. So this was, the attorney from consumers, so that's the communication. Rob Paul communicated with them. He is also representing the authority on this matter since he's handling it for the township. And it's just, I kind of almost had forgotten about it. It's just rumbling along, but Sunday evening, he sent me an email with his response to the complaints. And I printed them out for you, and they're there. And then, so I have printed out, what's that?
It's right in what you used.
Yeah, I don't know where my copy is. I'm floundering around, but, right, so, yeah, his email right on the front page there. Yeah, do you have an extra or you got, okay. So Rob Paul's email, that I included the email from the attorney that I just read from. And then the attached, the consent judgment regarding defendant for each of the two matters. And the attorney, in his email said that the, agreements have been worked through with consumers. As you may recall, the suit is for construction of the Consumers Energy Pipeline over 2 properties in Sylvan Township. Because consumers identified the authority and townships might have utility interests, they've listed us as separate defendants. Our main issue in these suits was to determine what facilities or rights we have on the property and make sure they wouldn't be interfered with. The Lago parcel is a large parcel that contains water sewer facilities. Their research uncovered easements. We know where the water sewer lines are located. And he worked out a consent judgment that our facility and easement rights would take precedent over consumers' energy rights. So we will be protected there. They won't interfere with our rights. If there's any damages, they would be responsible. And then the second property is the Daniels, which is a narrow sliver of land that runs along the highway. And there's no easements. We don't have any utilities going through there. So the consent judgment there simply states we don't have facilities, and if we do have some unrecorded right, that it is subject to consumers' interest in the property. So he is recommending approval of both of these consent judgments that he has worked through. The Water and Sewer Authority has their own copies that they'll be addressing.
So you're looking for a motion to have Rob Paul sign this on behalf of Sylvan Township?
Correct, both of the consent judgments.
Also move.
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, so motion by Kurt, supported by Rod. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Thank you, motion carries. That will be nice. He told me, I talked to him briefly this evening, and he told me that we were just about the only government entity that hadn't signed off yet, the Road Commission Conservation District. So that will be good, and then they can move on with their construction. And then we had one more item that was added. Rod, is that your?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm just looking to add Lake Trust Credit Union as an approved financial facility, so I can move some money over there. They've got some pretty good rates going right now. And so I'd just like to, that's the only thing that's changed on the front page, is they were added to the bank of facilities. So I'd like to make a motion to approve Lake Trust Credit Union to be added as an approved financial facility.
I'll second.
All right, thank you. Motion by Rod, supported by Kurt to add Lake Trust as a financial institution, our investment policy. Any discussion?
Is it our investment policy?
Yeah,
I think it is. Yeah.
Fiddler.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
I'm going to see it.
Finance 30.
Third.
Was it?
Everybody in third.
All right. Thank you. That concludes the business. Missing thing. So then we are to our next public comment, then we'll have Board of Trustee member comments and we'll adjourn. Public comment? Yes, Patrick.
Yeah, on the interconnection. Exploratory reading. I heard the discussion that the board made today. And I realize that there's an issue that's very hard that could be hard to deal with. The fact that only some people on the board are going to be engaged in those discussions directly. But I think everybody else wants to at least be in the loop of what's being discussed. And I think that's very important that everybody be in the loop, because you don't want to get to the point where an agreement is being proposed, and then you find out you take it back to the board and the rest of the board doesn't like it. Simply because of some things that could have been introduced into the discussion but weren't, right? Because there could be checkpoints here and there to make sure we're kind of on the right track for everybody. There were negotiations with Chelsea in 2008 about sharing the water system. And I believe there were 3 meetings held where 2 Sylvan Township board members came. You can't have 3, right? But there were brief minutes published in each of those meetings. So everybody in the public and the other board members could see, just in general terms, what was being put on the table and discussed. That, if that was done again, that would be really beneficial, because it would give somebody the chance to give some input. Somebody like Kurt, for example, who has a lot of input on these things, to give some input before it goes too far in some direction. Or to object to something before it goes too far, right? It's been done before. So I'd like to strongly suggest that a brief report be issued at certain checkpoints along the way. And those be made public. Thank you.
Any other public?
I agree with Patrick. Something as important as this interconnected agreement, it needs to have multiple rounds of input to make sure that Sylvan's not taking a bad deal on this. I don't know if you're looking for community volunteers or whatever. If you decide that you would like to do that, I would love to volunteer to be on that. Second of all, I am appalled at even the concept, let alone the practice of handing out water meters before a tap has been paid for. First of all, in my personal opinion, and in all of my years, all of that information should be on one form. And you don't get a meter until that tap is paid. And the inspection costs, the installation costs, the meter costs, it should all be on one form and laid out. It blows my mind that we are so lax in control that we're doing that, and I implore you to tighten down those screws to a very uncomfortable level for all who may even think of not verifying that a tap has been paid for.
Thank you. Yes.
That's a quick question about the bank thing. I just don't have $3.2 million in my account, but, so I Googled it and Chelsea State Bank is FDCI insured, and that's limited to $250,000.
Every bank. Every bank account.
So, so the township has 3.2 million and something bad happens to Chelsea State Bank, then what happens to the balance of that money?
We spread it around.
Curious if there's any way that we can get around that.
Yes.
You spread it around
Spread around to Chelsea State Bank.
different banks. That's why we have different financial places to use.
So there's no more than, there's
No,
nowhere,
there is.
nowhere to
There is, we can, it's hard to not.
spread that money around.
Yeah.
There's a CEDARS program. And that's exactly what that program does.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Any other public comment? Board of trustee comments?
Additional.
I would just say that we have a May 2nd election this year for the Chelsea area fire authorities village. I sent out my absentee ballot applications today.
So if you were on the permanent list, you would get an application in the mail.
And what's new this year, because of proposal 2, you will have the option to sign up for, there's going to be an option to sign up to be on the permanent ballot list. So you won't have to fill out an application every election cycle. You would be placed on a permanent list for a ballot. So that's new. If anybody's on that list and will receive the application, you'll have that option.
That was one part of a Proposition 2 that passed, the voter initiative that passed, so that's out of the clerk's hand, it's out of our township's hand, that's the decisions that's been made, so. I would like to mention that the township board has come together a couple times and worked out a budget. And, I put copies of it over there. Our fiscal year starts April 1st and runs through the end of March, so we're coming up on it quickly. So we plan to, we need to have a public hearing, so we're putting the budget numbers out to the people, you guys can look at it. We have a public hearing in a couple weeks. You come forward with any concerns you have, or we have a dialogue. And then at a later date, we approve the budget. In the past, I think we've had the public hearing in the same meeting we approved the budget, but that doesn't feel like good governance to us. We need to have the public hearing and allows for some time for the people to say things if we need to make adjustments. So we have to have budget in place. At our April meeting, we got to cut checks at some point. We can wait until the 6th or the 7th. So the budget is there. We will put it online. I can put it right front and center on the front. You'll see the left-hand column is our requested budget. I think it has last year's budget on there. I took out the actuals because those haven't quite caught up yet. But you can look at that. If you have questions, feel free to email me or anybody on the board. We had 2 different meetings. We were stymied by electrical outages. We were going to meet and be able to have the public hearing tonight, but with the power outage, then we couldn't get the notice in the newspaper fast enough. So we too, like you all, have suffered through the winter storms we've had. But I want to mention that, and that is our plan. That's our plan of, that we will have the public hearing in a couple weeks. Look for that. I think the board determined the 21st at 7, so it's a Tuesday. It'll be 2 weeks. Come together, have the public hearing, and then in our April pass the new budget. And I will say in this year's budget, in the water, fund, there's, as usual, our general fund supplements the water fund. At the end of the day, the water fund doesn't have enough to pay for everything. There's only a couple hundred people on the water system. So it's tough. So we always end up giving money. This year is a lot, particularly because there's a wish list of, well, more than a wish list, a need list of things for the treatment plant. You know, kind of like here at our township hall, although we have put in a capital improvements line this year for the township hall. Kurt suggested that, and I know past supervisors have too. We're happy to, we didn't put a lot in there, but we can put a little. But the plant has not had upgrades. It hasn't been planned for, they haven't been capital improvements. There's a lot of work. It's approaching 20 years old. So the interior needs to be, all the pipes need to be cleaned and repainted. There's filters that need to be replaced. There's hydrants that need to be replaced. And then in the future, we also are going to need to have the tower cleaned and painted again. I think that's probably a couple of years down the road. So there's a lot of things in the water budget that are going to take water money from our general fund. For budgeting purposes, we just had to put this all on paper and move forward. But I know the board intends to have discussions about monies, whether they came through from malpractice lawsuits years and years ago that are sitting, hopefully, you know, invested in making some interest, but that there might be other opportunities to shore up that water fund that don't involve us taking it from the general fund. But for the purposes of just having a budget together, we just put it together. So you'll see it, you'll say, oh my gosh, it's $250,000 going over the water fund. Yeah, that's what the list of needs are for the plant. But there are other ways that we can look at funding that. And I know we're gonna have discussions in the near future about what we're gonna be able to do about that. So the budget's out there. I think that's all I have.
I will address you to your big things. I am moving money around. I have been moving money around slowly, getting into high yield accounts. I just moved a little over $1 million into a 4.8% now. So we're getting money on that. CDs come due when they come due. I plan to move those. And as you see, I opened another financial facility tonight to move more money. So we are working on that. With the trust and agency account, the water fund account that you see negative, that goes up and down. I have no control over that. And the trust and agency account that goes up and down, I have no control over that. That goes, and the other account, water and sewer account goes up and down. I have no control over those. I don't balance the bank statements. The accountant does that. And things catch up as they catch up. But nothing, there's nothing that's $280,000. I'll tell you that right now. Nothing.
So this is an issue of how we're reporting.
Yep. Because I just printed out of the program. That's all I do.
It's not an actual balance
No, it's not.
at a bank.
Nope. So I just want to put that out there. That's it for me.
I have no plans. Right. Wonderful, thank you. And just to circle back to the beginning, Renee, thank you for bringing that up. And I just want to mention to everybody that our email domains have changed with our website. We had that new .gov. And for a while, if you emailed the old email, it would be forwarded to us. And so it was kind of seamless. And then all of a sudden that went away one day. And now in retrospect, I wish what we would have done, I wish what our IT people would have recommended is, what I've seen in other townships is you get an auto responder saying, hey, just so you know, my email has changed. Cause when I see that like 3 times, I say, oh, okay, or at least maybe it dawns on you. So you on the receiving and weren't receiving that information, which I can see would cause another lapse. So I'm glad that you said at the last meeting you emailed, cause I was like, and I looked like I didn't, and then we were able to communicate. So I appreciate that, and thank you for bringing that up, so I can remind everyone. If you're not getting a response, double check the email or call or something, it might be a situation.
We'll move to adjourn.
Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those-
It's good tomorrow night. It's so much fun.
You know, though, I mean, I really could see us making every 2 weeks, because there's a lot of, and there's some here that are, things move fast. So I would have a problem with that, you know, if we wanted to have a.
Takes an eternity for anything.
When we have one meeting a month, you know, especially, right, right. Oh, okay.
That's kind of awesome.
Yes, it is. I think that's right.
Well, no, actually, I got